Lecture 21, we were talking about herbal remedies, and I said at the very end, you have to be careful what you take because the herbal supplements or herbal remedies are not monitored in the same ways that pharmaceuticals and over-the-counter drugs are. I was trying to say when I said molecules are molecules are molecules, they're all the same thing. I didn't mean, and I hope you all had some healthy discussion about this, that, taking a controlled narcotic is the same thing as taking an aspirin. Is the same thing as taking some tea of a root from somewhere across the world. But what I wanted you to think about was the fact that herbal remedies and herbal supplements, I want you to think of them as collections of molecules that may not be as well defined and studied as prescription drugs or over-the-counter drugs, but just like prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs, there are molecules that are collections that exist, and they may or may not have the same types of physiological effects. And so you have to be very careful just because somebody didn't say take one pill every 12 hours, that you don't abuse herbal remedies thinking it's more like food than concentrated amounts of certain physiologically active molecules. So that's what I meant. It's just like sort of like thinking about if you drink the extract of Lipton tea, that'd be just like making some hot tea. What's the active ingredient in Lipton tea? Well, it's caffeine. Caffeine is the physiological agent that kind of gives you a little pick-me-up in Lipton tea, and it's a relatively low concentration of caffeine, so it normally doesn't affect people. Some people, however, if you drink it late in the day, it actually can cause you not to be able to fall asleep. That, of course, isn't the same thing as drinking the tea of, say, the opium poppy. What's the active ingredient in that mixture? It would be morphine and other opiates, okay? Whereas caffeine is a mild stimulant, morphine is a central nervous system depressant. So, molecules are molecules are molecules. They're all made of carbon, hydrogen, maybe some nitrogen, oxygen, sulfur, other common organic elements, but they can have vastly different physiological effects. So the word tea shouldn't, or extract shouldn't lull you into a false sense of security, okay? All right, I think that's all I wanted to say about that. So thinking about that, a concept that, herbal remedies, over-the-counter drugs, and prescription medications all have, certain compounds that are going to have some physiological activity. We want to talk a little bit about illegal drugs, okay, and what do we exactly mean by that? How does something become an illegal substance? Okay, so just to guide us in our discussion, I reproduced this table from the 6th edition, Chapter 10, and this particular table is called a drug schedule. And what a drug schedule it came out of the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act. So it's a legal guiding document, comprehensive drug abuse prevention and Control Act. Okay, and this was passed in 1970. All right. As a result, this particular scheduling or classification of different drugs was passed by the United States Congress to help enforcement agencies be able to monitor and control the distribution of certain controlled substances and be able to track and see, where these substances are going to try to prevent and then, or if caught, prosecute people who were breaking the law by using these drugs for some use other than their intended pharmaceutical use. So depending on whether or not there's an accepted, medical use, and depending on the potential for abuse of these different drugs, and this is just a sampling of them. There's hundreds and hundreds of drugs listed and given different classifications. So Schedule 1 are the most potential for abuse, and there's no medical use. So if someone were to have this particular Schedule 1 drugs, that means that the only reason why we would have them is for illegal purposes. And you can see, for example, heroin, LSD, marijuana, mescaline, and MDMA, which has the street name of ecstasy. Okay, those are all considered illegal substances. And then Schedule 2 through 5, these all have current accepted medical use, but because there's a potential for abuse ranging from high to low here, they're also monitored. Some pharmacies don't even sell some of these high and medium schedule drugs because they're so tightly controlled. There's a lot of paperwork and whatnot that goes into having and selling and prescribing these particular drugs. Okay, so this is how, like, the organization of how one keeps track of this. How do drugs end up on this list in the first place? Well, it depends on, for example, for these potential for abuse, the reason why the United States had to do this is because people were getting sick and causing problems and doing illegal things based on substance abuse. And so so there had to be some way of tracking these substances so people who sell them could be held accountable and people who use them could be held accountable in the legal system. So anyway, why don't we take a look at some of these substances to try to understand, what they are and how they ended up being a problem. First of all, just marijuana. Marijuana happens to be the most common illegal substance or abused drug in the U.S. The 8% of the population, 12 and over, or should I say, no, 10% of the population, 12 and over, this is from 2004 data, have said that they have used marijuana, and 4.8 million people in the U.S. Claimed in 2004 that they had used it 20 or more days in the last month. Okay, 4.8 million people. Alrighty, so that's a lot of people using marijuana. So why is marijuana a problem? We're going to take a look at some of these in detail.